Tobias Lind on Bravo, star of the show, versus Eric Lerer on Lexi Livewire.
And I believe we're jumping into this as it's being played.
Yeah, it's already in action, as you see Tobias Lind on the bottom there at 38 versus Eric Lerer on top 32.
Frostbites everywhere. Lexi has a frostbite. Starvo has a frostbite. Everyone has a frostbite.
Let's get her going. All right, so as it stands right now, we're just getting, again, we're right in there. I see Tobias has a, first of all, there's a sonic boom, which is just, it is such a huge boom. It has reverberated into other games.
It's still booming.
It's still booming.
It's still going.
But Tobias, I believe, is holding on to an Okanold here, but it's right now the play is to Eric, who is evaluating what they want to do. There's a frostbite token to be had, but a full tunic as well.
So on Lexi's turn, starting off with the Voltaire activation, paying 2 here instead of the 1 because of the Frostbite, so floating 1 resource, and then sinking down that Pathing Helix, a card that, and most likely, of course, choosing Go Again here, a card that's just straight value, just presents damage, and this is what just sort of hybrid Lexi does, is just pushes a lot of iterations of 4, and then finds ways to weave in on-hit effects that are dangerous to your opponent and just very incentivizes your opponent to actually do something about. And Pathing Helix here is basically just an if it hits reload.
Yeah, which
so
is
it's fantastic.
Exactly. I mean, you already have Voltaire, which is going to load you up for 2 times, but we've seen just how wide Alexi can go. You've got Bullseye Bracers, but that's a one and done, right? But ultimately, you want to be able to probably chain together 3 attacks. That is sort of the sweet spot. 2 sounds good. 3 is always better. And in this case, Pathing Helix at that 4 is a great way to block.
And this is fantastic, too. You know, it would have been even better if that Pathing Helix would have connected, because then you have another way to arsenal an arrow attack, so that when 3 of a kind comes down, drawing you 3 cards, but keeping you to only playing cards from arsenal, you would have had another arrow. In any case, drawing into what's basically another full grip of 4 cards, I believe, in hand. Now, of course, like you said, everything has to, at this point with 3 of a kind, has to be played from the arsenal. So 1 activation left on Voltaire, and then you've got some tricky stuff that you can do depending on hits or Bullseye Bracers.
Yeah, at this rate, I don't know if it's worth it to go ahead and hit the Bullseye Bracers on this particular turn. Nonetheless, I mean, something like 3 of a kind, the beautiful part here is on the Starvo side is you don't have to worry about things like Rain Razors or if they're running a Lightning Press, because you cannot play those from hand. There's no surprises, like we mentioned. So in this case, 3 of a kind, like you said, refills the hand, but you got to play it out of the arsenal, and Voltaire's already been used once, now twice. So Eric, in this case, is kind of deciding, looking through the cards, what's the best way, the most efficient attack that I can use, the best attack that I can use. In that case, looks like a blue Bolton shot.
Dropping a Bolton shot in, and this is actually going to pose an interesting question to Tobias, because if he just lets this 3 damage arrow, which is most likely being buffed by Voltaire here so that it can get Go Again, if he just chooses to let this attack hit, then it will continue the turn by allowing a reload to happen, as per the text, right, of course, on the card. So he's going to push it out there and then push it. I believe it comes in for 4. No, coming in for 3, excuse me.
Right. So, again, the beautiful part about the Bolton shot, if the attack is greater than the base, natural Go Again. Let's get it.
Go Again.
But giving up an Okanold here is quite the get for Eric.
Yes, it is.
One, seeing them off the table, typically you're counting how many of these major threats, Okanolds, how many have I seen? Well, you've seen one here, and you didn't even have to block it. It was merely, tossed away to block that Bolton shot.
Yeah. He's going to tick up the Tunic to 3, and look at his 2-card hand. Can't play the channel here because don't have an ice card, so he's going to pitch it instead for a nice little Frostbite threat.
I like how he just slides it under to like, oh, by the way.
Would you like this? Would you like that?
It's a package deal. I have been speaking to a lot of players, and a lot of players have actually, with the new ban and restricted announcement, have been talking about how they've been reimagining or revisioning how this particular Starvo is played more towards the old Showstopper version, which was a slower, a little bit more opportunistic style.
Yes.
But fatigue is kind of on the radar. The question is that, like, when you see somebody blocking 3 vanilla damage with an Okanold, it leads you to believe that they're not out there to go ahead with these big swings and these, that it's just 3 cards, Ice Hammer, 3 cards, Ice Hammer, 3 cards, Ice Hammer, and that might be the way that Tobias is looking to play this matchup.
Yeah, and you can also get that same read off of the legendary shield here being the shield that was chosen instead of the ice shield, of course, Stalagmite not being played. Doing that exact play also allows him, and I believe it was a Spinal, I think that was in his deck, or that it was in his hand, now being in the arsenal, allows him to, if he chooses to, defend a little bit extra. And this would be a great turn to defend a little extra. He can Crown of Seeds to draw a card, defend 1.
Yeah, paying 2 here, eviscerating and thawing out that Frostbite. And banishing, that would be, is that a Searing Shot?
No, banishes a Pathing Helix again, drawing 2.
Yeah, 2. So, again, more cards in the hand. Lexi finding other ways to go ahead and replenish the hand. When you have something like Voltaire, you need cards to load that bow twice.
Yep. So the Art of War here, fantastic for pushing extra damage and making things very scary. It literally turns on all of your Bolton shots because it gives them all the +1s. And it allows you to go really, really wide. It's a fantastic card in this deck, and one that I was perhaps underutilized before people really started pushing Lexi in the ProQuest season, because Banish Draw 2 doesn't seem as good when you aren't chained, but honestly, it just draws you more arrows, and they can also have Go Again if you draw into some Bolton shots. Coming down with Icequake.
Icequake is a nice card to have. Again, just giving this next arrow a little bit more edge, as it were, just sharpening it a little bit more.
Oh my gosh, he
again.
draws a 3 of a kind as well. This man is on a roll.
Hey, when you're hot, baby.
5-card hand. Don't forget, Art of War is available. Now, unfortunately, if you draw into, I don't know, like more non-attacks, more Icequakes, things like that, it doesn't behoove you. But he's going to load up something with Voltaire here. Let's see what he chooses.
But, I mean, when you're pitching arrows, it must mean that your hand is loaded
full
with
of arrows,
so.
yes. So he's going to come in with Searing Shot here, which is going to push 4, but it's actually going to be 5. I believe. Oh, scratch that. It's 8. Excuse me, because Icequake. It's a casual 8. You know, this would have Go Again as well. I believe the mode chosen on Voltaire was Go Again, but it's not indicated, so we're sort of surmising that ourselves.
Little casual 8, little weekend at the Hamptons 8, you know, just coming in again with the on-hit effect later on with the Frostbites if necessary. But again, whenever an attack hits this turn, create a Frostbite token under the whenever an attack, not the next attack.
That's correct.
This is an inherited situation with the Art of War kicker on top of this. This might be a situation if Eric has the right tools and the resources for it. This could be a Bullseye Bracer turn as well.
Yes, and he's got 3 cards left in hand. He has 1 activation of Voltaire. There's a very real possibility that this just keeps going. And Turn Timber is a great answer for now. It's a great answer for now, but if this continues, then you're creating Frostbites, you're ripping more cards out of the hand. Now, do keep in mind, Tobias did sink that card from the arsenal so that he could Crown of Seeds, which means the Spinal's on the bottom, and he could be tracking these, trying to line up Spinals with, like, blues for the 2nd or 3rd cycle of the deck. If this game goes really long, 3rd cycle, but...
Endless Arrow with another, again, the little benefit of the Art of War. So that's a 6 on that bad boy.
A double block here to block the 6. You don't want that Endless Arrow cycling. If that Endless Arrow goes back to hand, or is possible for it to go back to hand, then you definitely Snapdragon that. Consider giving it Go Again and reloading it with Bullseye, or pushing even more damage. Something like that could be on the table, but taking that away from your opponent and just blocking 6 if you're playing the fatigue strategy is totally fine.
Yeah, in this case, it seems like that's exactly what Bravo Star of the Show is doing. Tobias is on that fatigue strategy. If it was a more aggressive style, we might have seen Eric actually capitalize on the fact that you've got Icequake and you have an Art of War already played. You may have seen things like Bullseye Bracer, Snapdragons, and make this turn a little bit longer, but look at the life totals. Eric has thrown everything but the kitchen sink through that bow at Tobias and has only come through for 2 damage.
Yeah, it looks very explosive from Lexi. Unfortunately, if you don't capitalize on going over the top, you may just run out of threats, and that's the danger of running arrows and things like that.
As it stands now, again, the strategy, which is I have 3 cards I'm going to block with, keep it nice, throw a hammer at you. Again, when you're coming through with 4 damage and an ice kicker, that is a tough pill to swallow for the Lexi player here.
Just wanted to also point out on that previous very large turn, what a clutch moment to be able to sink a card into your arsenal and then use Crown of Seeds on that turn to stop 8, meaning you didn't have to drop a card. Fantastic play on the previous turn, and definitely playing towards the fatigue strategy in that respect.
Yeah, these players came to play. They're both at 3-0 here at the Pro Tour in New Jersey, and it is nice to see, I don't know about you, man, but it is nice to see just the sheer amount of variations. And, you know, you'll go to a Battle Hardened, you'll go to a Calling, people bring the decks that they're comfortable with, that they like, but this is the real deal, man. This is the real McCoy, and frankly, you'd think that the players are, that when so much is on the line, the meta would bubble up to really, truly what the top 2 or 3 main things are, but we have seen such a variety of different heroes, and not just heroes that are showing up, but heroes that are succeeding.
I think that's the benefit of a new meta as well, because everyone's still trying to figure out the just the width and breadth of the effect that the bans and suspensions have actually done. Here's a block for 5 on the 5 of the Sleep Dart. Turning off the hero ability would be cool, but it's not going to happen this time, and probably don't have to worry too much about it if they're playing for control.
Look at that, another sink below. Just such a clean way to answer these cards. And the cards, again, with on-hit triggers like Endless Arrow, being able to recover that card and replay it, that has significant implications, especially against Fatigue.
Yeah, I think we've actually seen all copies of Endless Arrow be moved to the graveyard. Maybe there's one still floating on the deck. I know we've seen Guarantee 2 have been fully blocked, but I think all 3 have been there. I'm not quite sure. But either way, this means that we've seen 2 3-of-a-kinds, 2 Endless Arrows, and either 1 or 2 Art of Wars already be burned through. And
what do you have to show for it?
38 damage or 38 health for your opponent. This is a dangerous situation where you have to start trying to figure out how to come over the top.
Well, and that's the case. I mean, like, you've basically, all of your home runs were caught at the fence, right?
Oh, there's the third Endless Arrow, actually.
All right, so there's the third Endless Arrow, and this, again, Tobias's mindset here is like, I don't mind tanking a little bit of damage. That's the threat I probably need to answer, and I need to stuff. Because in reality, if I'm playing Fatigue, giving my opponent this sort of evergreen, constantly recurring threat back in their hand, that basically defeats what my overall strategy is going to be.
Going to sink that Bolt and Shot Red into the second arsenal slot that's opened up thanks to New Horizon, the legendary Ranger head equipment. Fire that out there for 5, which is greater than base, which means this has go again. And if this hits, it will reload or can reload you a card, allowing you another activation, essentially, of something going into arsenal.
Eric also doing a little bit of accounting in terms of what's in the graveyard from the Starvo player here, as basically, in the same vein as Tobias wants to keep track of all the main threats that Eric will present, you know, Eric has to do the same for Tobias. Even though there's not many attacks occurring, they may eventually come through. Like here, blocking with a Crippling Crush, that's one Crippling Crush out of the way. But late game, these are attacks that will come back to potentially haunt you. It only takes 1 or 2, major attacks to really end the game for Lexi.
Yes, especially late in the game. Exactly right. And coming across with a Fatigue Shot this time. Fatigue Shot pushing 5 damage and threatening that your next attack is going to be halved.
And, well, I mean, at this rate, when no attacks have occurred, this is probably the best hero that you want to be having their attacks, those big swings, those Crippling Crushes and whatever. But ultimately, Eric's not even worried about attacks. This is just about pushing through damage.
That's right. And interesting to note, if that does connect, it does have the weapon attack as well, because it just specifies. Oh, no, it only says first attack action card they play. Excuse me. Nevertheless, allowing you to, as you were saying, defend yourself in a way by also pushing damage is a fantastic new addition from Everfest.
So Tobias is just going to go ahead and pocket that card, draw up, Tunic up. We're fully loaded on that Tunic. Same for Eric. And what cards do we have in there? Is that a Blizzard, I believe?
It is a Blizzard and a Channel Lake Frigid. So if he chooses to, he could hold, and it looks like 2 ice cards as well.
There's 3 ice cards in there. Channel Lake Frigid, I believe there's an Icy Encounter, and the Blizzard.
Right. So if he chooses to, he could play down the Channel Lake Frigid on his own turn, take some damage here, and establish that with pitching one of those. And then keep the second one, draw into another one, and possibly have this stick for 2 turns, taxing your opponent for 2 turns. You could also just say no to your opponent's getting go again if you choose to play that Blizzard out.
All right, Crown of Seeds is going to go through. Again, Crown of Seeds is such a powerful card, and merely to clean up those awkward numbers, the 4s. You pitch you block with 3, you crown the additional 1, and it's so versatile. A lot of players, even against Arcane Damage, against Rosetta Thorns, you want to save the Crown of Seeds to clean up. Even if you are playing 1 Arcane Barrier, that's a great way to go ahead and do that as well.
Floating 2 resources here is also great because you can choose to play out like a block with Rampart on something that's a little awkward. Like here, for example, is a Fatigue Shot for 5. Perhaps you choose to block with that plus like Crown of Seeds, even though we already used Crown of Seeds. Floating those resources is huge as the Fatigue player because it allows you to block in creative ways with Rampart and with Crown of Seeds as well.
And look at this. It's just like, yeah, the on-hits don't matter to me, Bucko. Like,
No.
it's, you've got me down to 35. How much deck do you have left? How many threats do you have left? Your endless arrows are done. Well, there's one in there, and I think that's the main part here. But we've seen, I believe, 2 Sync Belows played by Tobias right now. I don't know. We've seen a Turn Timber. His deck is probably absolutely just loaded with probably about 12 D-Reacts.
Yeah, choosing to use the Blizzard, pitching it for later in the game, towards the end game, keeping that card in cycle instead of like playing it out to stop your opponent's turn, which was a middling turn, so you don't really need to stop that. You could just choose to block it out. Having it later in the game when those pivotal turns where you may be at less life, saving it for when you possibly could use it, and then also presenting 4 damage and a Frostbite token if they choose to take it. It's a solid play. Allows you to arsenal the lightning card that you had in your hand as well.
And at this rate, it looks like Eric is thinking, okay, I've let enough of these hammers through for free, just sort of preserve hands to get as wide and as nasty as possible. But what has that paid off for me? Now I'm in a pretty tough position. As you can see, Eric's kind of just chuckling to himself. It's like, man, what is it going to take here? I've been just banging my head against this brick wall.
Jams down his own Channel Lake Frigid, though. That's a fine little play, but unfortunately you didn't threaten the hand of your opponent, and you're playing against a Guardian, and Guardians can throw giant things at you. And that's exactly what we may see happen here, pitching 2 blues, coming in with a Spinal.
I guess that's not as bad as Giants throwing Guardians at you.
Either way, it sounds dangerous.
So there's a 9-point Spinal Crush, which, frankly, other than Phasmatis, is the best band name I've probably ever heard in my life. That's a shout-out to RZR.
Spinal Crush coming across for 9, threatening that crush effect where nothing can gain go again, everything loses go again for your opponent. He did pay 6 for that. It normally costs 5, but paying the 2 blues so that you can afford it off of the back of the Channel Lake Frigid.
I think that's a very efficient way to get rid of the a 5 is just 2 cards either way. With a deck that's absolutely populated by blue pitch cards, it's still a 2-card pitch to get this massive attack through 9 with the crush effect. Again, it's not an on-hit, it's crush. Crush meaning that 4 damage has to actually connect for the detrimental on-hit effect to occur. And in this case, just blocking out 6 is enough to just make this okay. And frankly, 3 damage through. This is not about these massive explosive turns of dealing. It's like I'm gonna fuse. I'm gonna
fuse an Oaken 13 dominate or 11
buy
dominate,
your hand,
stuff like
follow
that.
with a hammer, and connect for 10 to 12 damage. In that case, that's not what this is about. This is about pressuring consistently with hammer. Lexi does not have the benefit of having blockable equipment. All the equipment that they have is utility, and in this case, it's not about defense. And that hammer is such a threat. It's such an annoyance because it comes in at 4.
And as you've seen over the course of this game, the tempo is slowly but surely tilted in Bravo Star the Show's favor, and now he's followed the Spinal Crush attack with another giant attack for 7, threatening a Frostbite on hit.
Is that Snow Under?
It is Snow Under,
like
revealing
Under
the Frostfang blue for the fuse there.
Beautiful fuse on that one as well. 7 again, one of those real awkward numbers to go through on hit. Well, another Frostbite. So, and then again, I really love the fact that Tobias is, given the benefit of just sliding that Frostbite under, saying, hey, don't forget, you got a little package deal with it. It does manage to connect. Look at this. Eric at 13. I think he tanked the whole thing. He must really, really like his hand.
Well, I think there's this thought that if I'm going to have to do something. I'm going to have to string together something. I have a 6-card hand at this point. I have 1 face-down arsenal, 1 face-up arsenal. I have a 4-card hand. I've burned through a lot of my power cards, but we haven't seen any Rain Razors, and we haven't seen the other 2 Art of Wars. So if you can string together Rain Razors, Art of War, some very scary on-hit effects, maybe you can come over the top, steal cards out of Tobias's hand, push extra damage, and level the playing field.
This might be the window, like you mentioned, that he sees that he can have. Taking damage in 1 Frostbite is not going to change things, especially since some of that Frostbite resource can be recovered after with the tunic value. So this might be the perfect storm.
Is this Art of War? This could be an Art of War here.
He's doing the calculations. It is Art of War. Good call, Armada, on that one. Pitching 3. It's going to cost you 2. So 1's floating here, and now you do have 1 resource left on the tunic as well. And keep it up. Bullseye Bracers up. Snapdragons up. Endless Arrow up. It's all systems go here.
Banishing a Bolt and Shot, drawing 2 cards, hoping to draw into more arrows. This is not a 3-of-a-kind turn yet. I don't think the other one's still in the deck. I think all 3 are gone. But which means that you can play cards from your hand as well. You don't have that detriment, and you do have the benefit of the buff here. So let's see what he just chooses to reveal. Is he going to use Lexi to reveal the face down card? If it's a lightning card, it could be a go again effect triggered, or it could give a frostbite token.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. This is
ice. It is ice.
It is ice indeed, and this is like really the first domino to fall is what's going to really dictate how this is going to go. But really, the first symptom here is that Art of War.
Now, this is important too because earlier we were able to get a peek at Tobias's hand, and he does have a turn Tibber in hand. So with this frostbite, he's actually going to have to pay a full blue without any floating resources to play that turn timber, which is influential. It's impactful because if you want a Crown of Seeds as well, you're going to have to lose your Tunic counter or pitch a second card from your hand.
And the tough part about this is that there was always the opportunity to respond to the Lexi reveal. So you could have just used the and gone ahead and and Crown of Seeds then and have that floating, but it might be a matter of Tobias wanting to save that one extra soakable damage for when it matters for an on hit, because using it now means that the next arrow, the damage will get absorbed there.
Yep, so he's going to pay the resource there. He's going to pay 2 to Crown of Seeds, sink that card down there, paying for the token to go away, and now he has to deal with this rest of this 9 damage from Sleep Dart.
I believe there's a staunch response and a turn timber in hand.
Yeah, he had multiple defense reactions, so he has the capability, but it's the resource payment that he has to deal with as well.
Ooh, I see. So there's a blue Frostfang. Is that a blue Evergreen in there as well?
Yep.
Okay, so you've got the resources to pay for those big D-reacts, so this could be a situation where
there's the turn timber fuse, so that's going to block all of that. It's going to cover up everything that he's possibly got to throw at him. And this does also float the Crown of Seeds, which allows any future attacks on this turn to have some amount of absorption.
This just worked out very well for Tobias in this case. And again, Eric is just man, what is it going to take, right? You're here, Art of War, Icequake, massive, massive attack, and just get stuffed by a fused turn timber on top of it. Not bad. Listen, this is what the deck is designed to do, right? And we've talked about how Starvo in the past has been all about fusing, smashing, and just getting to that end game where another dominant attack kills you. This is a different. This is a little bit of a more of a reversion to the showstopper strategy.
Yes, it's definitely the old school control style that we saw sort of popularized early in the game with original Bravo, showstopper, and then sort of get perfected, I would say, with Oldhim. And this has all been contingent. This has all been, I believe Eric's sort of line of thinking was like, I know that my opponent is trying to block out everything that I have, and I know that my one recursion card that I have left, this last Endless Arrow, I want to try and get some value out of this over the course of multiple turns. So I'm going to push a giant attack on the back of Icequake, Art of War, and I'm going to try to buy cards so that I can somehow get the value out of the Endless Arrow and then have it cycle, because without that card, or unless he runs Remembrance in his deck, he doesn't have that recursion that he could have if Endless Arrow does hit. So it doesn't look like it connects here.
No, that's a 5-point.
Oh, the Rain Razors, the second. Rain Razors choosing to play it now as the true combat trick instead of playing it on the Sleep Dart, which is very interesting.
So a little bit about the timing of this, because even though there couldn't be there was no D-react that Tobias can pay for. What if that was like another Sink Below in hand? Was there be an opportunity to go ahead and jam that in to just further stuff that attack?
It's a very real possibility, depending on his overall card. Well, technically, I think his card composition was all known, right? He knew the Evergreen because of the fuse. Did he know the other card? I can't recall.
Did not know what the other card was.
Oh, it was a staunch response.
It's a staunch response,
yep.
right? So if that was, let's say, after you go ahead and jam out the Rain Razors to get on top, Tobias, I'm not entirely sure if Tobias had another window there to go ahead and jam out another D-react. Ultimately, the important part here is that Tobias got an opportunity to get that Endless Arrow back. That is what is, I think, despite the fact that he only connected for 2 damage, that is a small victory for Eric in this matchup.
And that is the reason that we saw him play it out, the Rain Razors out second instead of having it buff both attacks, is because he wanted the he was playing around the possibility that there was a second defense reaction in hand, and he did it correctly, because if he plays it on the first one, then the second attack, the Endless Arrow attack, is just as easy as pitching the blue Evergreen, I believe that's a blue Evergreen, to play the Staunch Response and then stop the Rain Razors buffed Endless Arrow.
Eric has another Art of War. in hand as well, if I'm not mistaken. I just sort of caught a peek of it. So that is something, yeah, pitching it away in this case, I guess thinking that, you know what, I'll see you again down the path, you know?
The possibility is there because your opponent is clearly playing Fatigue against you, and that's his turn. That's actually just arsenal a second card, pitch away the Art of War, try to pitch stack that. Pitch stacking, of course, if you don't know, is where you line up multiple cards perhaps next to each other or close to each other within the deck, on the bottom of the deck when you pitch them, so that when you see them come around the second time, you can line them up and they can have a big combo in that moment. But that was his turn. That was it.
All right. Well, it's winter in Montreal, ladies and gentlemen. It's snowy. It's painful. It feels like a hammer to the back of your skull. And that's it. It's Channel Lake Frigid on both sides, presenting again another 4-attack hammer here. Ice cards pitched away for that hammer, doing it in the proper way. It looked like there's... so a little bit of over pitching perhaps just to make sure that everything's paid for, but the most important part is that you are paying ice. You're pitching an ice card to get that hammer for the on-hit effect, but it looks like this is just 2 turns where
you get a channel in,
yeah.
You get a channel in, everybody gets a channel.
It's going to be like this. We call when there's 2 Channel Lake Fridges on the board, we call that a Canadian standoff.
Yeah, we need to coin that. Let's coin a term.
It's Chat. A Canadian standoff.
Chat, join in. Come up with the best term that you can think of when both players have an active Channel Lake Frigid. Is it Endless Winter? It's a Montreal special.
Yeah, look, the
That's
old
what
Montreal
Kel says.
special. I love it. I love it. Also, Montreal special, rioting when you win a hockey game and rioting when you lose a hockey game. That is also a Montreal
special.
Just
riot at any time.
So, yeah, there's an Endless Winter, not to be mistaken with the Endless Whisper, which is also something that we need to keep in mind here in case we want to bust out the saxophones. But, hey, we're not in day 3 yet. It's not the finals yet. We're not quite at saxophone mode.
Let's see what he decides to pay for the double tax, because he has a Frostbite as well as a Channel Lake Frigid active. So he's going to have to pay the double tax here for something. And that's a painful payment.
That's also a Quebec thing. I'm just saying, man, this game feels so at home for me. Love it. Yeah, but these are those situations where, again, Channel Lake Frigid is a card that you want to really just, stamp out what your opponent's game plan was so you can get back to your turn and do some things. But both players have them active at the same time, so this might just be a situation of just wait till the weather gets better and then we'll see you when we get there.
Yeah,
but
who will emerge from hibernation first is actually the interesting question, because technically Eric has the opportunity to pitch 2 ice cards first and continue the channel tax, and I don't think Tobias has 2 ice cards in his hand. The question becomes, do you even care about that, or do you just want both of them to unfreeze so that you can just jam stuff out? And he's going to choose to play the Winter's Bite out. At the tax, he's got to pay 2 for this zero-cost Winter's Bite.
So much tax. The good news about this taxation is there is representation because it's right there on the board, so you're getting
there
it.
There you go. Yeah, no tea involved.
No need for revolution here.
I got to say, I love the Winter's Bite inclusion here. Winter's Bite is such a good card because it demands a card no matter what you do. They can either pitch it, or they can discard the card. But either way, you know that your opponent is hampered.
Yeah, there's been a lot of really high-quality games and high-tier games where Winter's Bite has come in not just as a pitchable or a fusible, or in that case, it's actually come in to buy a card out of the hand to really be able to connect for that lethal damage. That card, Winter's Bite, is a nastier beast than you think it is.
Yes, it is. And here we have a nice little Snow Under, again, coming for 7 fused, with a Winter's Bite blue as well.
We've got to give some props here to Red Zone Rogue, who's putting these cards up on the board lightning fast, like Clint Eastwood, baby. Shoot from the hip, just bang, bang. Here we go, Snow Under.
Absolutely killing it is Mr. Red Zone Rogue. Choosing to take all 7 here. Absolutely just, I'm going to take it. I got to do something. The channel, we know the channel was going to go away because there weren't any ice cards pitched to it. So maybe the thought from Eric is that, okay, I have these cards in my hand. I have some ability to push damage, but I need to. Hey, look, it's our only appearance of Azalea this weekend so far. We'll just say so far.
That's the other part of the meta pie right there.
Rule of thumb. Don't give Kel the tablet to put cards on screen. Oh, the Rain Razors to start.
Maybe this is if you're playing this early, this could be a 3-of-a-kind turn because you won't have an opportunity.
Yes,
so we've seen 2 3-of-a-kinds.
There it is. Yeah,
Got
good
him.
Call. That is exactly correct. Got to play the Rain Razors first, which is a clear signal that we're going to draw 3 cards And do it all again.
Now, there's a Fate Foreseen in Tobias's hand, so that is 4 damage block. That's a really good one. But again, the worst part about sometimes, I believe that's a Lightning Surge as well. So a lot of these cards for elementals are going to be 2 blocks, and
Yes.
that is not ideal.
No.
So if this turn goes wide enough, the beauty here for Tobias is that he has 33 health points to fall back on. So
that is exactly right.
if Eric has the turn of the century here, I don't think that's going to be enough, because I don't think you can push 33 despite all that blocking available with a Crater Fist still there. You have the free Tunic, the Tunic into the Crown maneuver as well, which then draws you another card that you can block with. So Tobias feeling comfortable. And again, Eric needs to get something together here.
Ooh, loading up a Frostlock, a card that's just got value. You don't see Frostlock played a lot, but it's a card that just gets you value. And even if you don't choose to fuse Frostlock, you still get the value off of its first portion of text, which says cards and activated abilities cost opposing heroes an additional 1 this turn. Think of it basically just as a Channel Lake Frigid. It just established this arrow once it gets played, which is Tobias sees that and he's like, okay, stop everything. I'm going to Crown of Seeds in response, so I don't have to pay the extra.
Wait.
And there's the Frostlock.
Wait. And there's the fuse to the Frostlock as well.
Choosing to fuse, which means it's going to come for 4, and if it hits, the opponent can't pitch or play cards with base cost 0, which is bad because there are multiple cards in the hand of Bravo Star of the Show that, cost 0. Things like defense reactions that could cost 0. Things Lightning Surge that cost 0.
Yeah, no, there's plenty of options there. There's definitely plenty of options. And, there's 2 things that could go through your mind when you see somebody like Eric take that massive amount of damage. It's all right. He either has to go to the bathroom really bad and wants to end this real. I've been there, done that. It happens. Or he's got basically the only opportunity where all the stars align and he could possibly bust through this brick wall that Tobias has put up here. Again, the shift in the strategy, the ideology of what Bravo Star of the Show is giving here is it's no longer the aggressive, big-hitting behemoth. It's more of the patient, block out, Oldham showstopper, old school Guardian kind of way of doing this. And that's very fascinating how the field out there, many of them are like jamming pummels and trying to get extra aggressive.
Sure.
And here you have somebody like Tobias Lind who's saying, no, we're going to slow this down.
Yeah.
Because maybe I can't beat Chain, maybe I can't beat all the other aggros with the aggression plan, but I can do it with the slow roll plan.
Yep.
And here it has shown to be exceptionally effective against Lexi.
And time again, we've seen control in the game of Flesh and Blood just absolutely a show of force in this game. Being able to play control consistently and at a high level is your ticket to top tables. And yes, there's always going to be aggro that is just competitive and dangerous, but we've seen after tournament, just push control up that top table, up those top tables.
All right, Fatigue's on the board here again. It's going to get a little bit of a bonus from not only Voltaire, but from the Rain Razors. And we mentioned earlier the fact that Rain Razors had to be played ahead of the 3 of a kind because you can't play it from hand means that there's no more surprises. We know what everything's going to be value, so the blocking can be extra efficient. You don't have to play those mind games of waiting for one of those combat tricks to come out and really push things over the top.
He's just going to take the 7, saying, I want to keep this 3-card hand for your next attack because I assume that something else is coming down the pipeline. He has 2 ice cards, I believe they're 2 ice cards, but the main thing is he has a Fate Foreseen for 4, and he wants to stick that Fate Foreseen onto the Endless Arrow to stop everything that he possibly has throwing at him. And, of course, you do have to block 6 here, I believe, because the Rain Razors are giving the +2 buff.
So did he give him the go again with Voltaire or +1? Snapdragon's still there to potentially make this have another shot at in the bow here. So we'll see how this goes. Again, Frostlock, we're having a little bit of discussion here again.
Oh, I think they've forgotten the fact that Frostlock has caused the tax, perhaps?
That's potentially true. Again, taking it, cards like defense reactions now, they do cost, don't they?
Yeah. But looks like they've resolved that as they went.
Peacefully.
Of course, because you pitched the Lightning Surge for 3 resources, one of which was paid for the Crown of Seeds, and then you pay for the Fate Foreseen.
And that's the way it has to go. So, again, full blocking a lot of these out here. The Crater Fist, you look at Crater Fist.
I guess Rampart actually would cost you as well.
Rampart would, is that an activated ability on the Rampart?
It could be. It could. Well, you still have to pay 1 for it, though, right?
You do have to pay 1 no matter what. So the question here is, if the Frostlock was so much going on.
Guards and activated abilities cost an additional 1 this turn. Either way, I'm sure that this turn is not over, and the damage will continue. He's going to choose to break the Snapdragon Scalers, which I think is wise. With a 2-card hand still, and a resource floating, you want to push any extra damage that you could possibly do, like coming in with exactly that, the popping the bracers so that you can load up.
All right,
and
so
continue pushing.
Combat Chain is broken. We're going to do a little bit of house cleaning over here. As you can see, all of those cards are now into the graveyards. The Bullseye Bracers were popped, allowing you to go ahead and reload, load up an arrow in the arsenal and give it +1. So that's very, very helpful as well. That's a Bolton shot with the +1. So a go again, but I think you might be. Are you out of? No, you got 1 more left to go, and there's a reload effect on the Bolton shot as well.
Yes, but 4, 5, 6, and then 7 pushes across, and I believe he had perhaps just enough to block all 7.
That's right, because of the Rampart of the Ram's Head. The breaking of the chain allows you to go ahead and slide that Ram's Head into another blockable ability, and you do not have to pay to bring it +1 again. That +1 stays for the entire turn, so that's good for Tobias, because that was a very, very clean way to block that last card. And ultimately, again, Eric threw everything at Tobias in that turn, and what did he have to show for it?
26-5, unfortunately.
7 damage was pushed through on that turn, but it's, you know what? It's progress. But he did buy the hand, so Eric has another shot at this. The problem is, in these fatigue matches, you eventually run out of threats. And if Eric is not suspecting fatigue, he may have not pitched enough of those big attacks early on to see them recur later on in the second cycle.
Well, as far as Lexi is concerned, it's really about seeing those Rain Razors. It's about seeing those Art of Wars and those 3-of-a-kinds. And we've seen all of the 3-of-a-kinds go. We've seen, I think, all of the Art of Wars go. Maybe there's 1 still floating around in the deck. And then I think 2 have been, visible of the Rain Razors. 2 have been played. So that doesn't leave much in the way of threats as far as like things you can actually play out there and push a lot of the extra damage. It basically just leaves you with vanilla arrows like Blizzard Bolt.
Another situation here of inheriting the effect of the previous card, Blizzard Bolt, into another Blizzard Bolt means that if this Blizzard Bolt hits, it's 2 Frostbites that are being created, and every subsequent attack that hits will also create 2 Frostbites. But again, Tobias isn't here to worry about Frostbites and all that nonsense of paying for attacks, because that's not what this is about. It's about blocking as efficiently as possible, and when it truly matters, and if you've got a card to go ahead and pitch through and do some stuff, well, you pitch through and do some stuff. In this case, it's just
push for 4. Yeah, I mean, when your opponent's at 5, pushing for 4 feels pretty good, because you're basically putting them on a 2-turn clock. Like, you got to do something. Are you going to give me some cards from your hand, or are you going to say I'm at 1? And he chooses to go at 1 and see how that plays out for him.
Oh, Eric's got something going on here. It looks like he's got something brewing, and in this case, Tobias might even be in a situation where this whole turn, if he likes his hand, this whole turn might get eaten up, and this is where he comes back with an attack. But I believe there's a staunch response in there. I see a flash, if I'm not mistaken. Or is that a lightning?
Yeah, it is I think that is a flash. Yeah, flash, staunch response.
Yeah, there's a pretty big, hefty
glacial
attack.
Footsteps as well.
Footsteps in there. That's a hefty one as well. Blue coming in for 8 attack.
Yeah, it doesn't look like you can fuse it, but if you could fuse it, then you just take whatever is thrown at you, and then you just slam down the game, basically.
At that rate, man, no offense, but who cares? If it's fusing or not, it doesn't matter. What is the fusion going to do? When you're at 0, Frostbite means nothing at all.
He had the opportunity here to Crown of Seeds to draw into an ice card. And if the other 2 cards are blue in hand, then you'd have just enough. But nope, he didn't draw into it, so he's going to block with the Glacial instead, which will cover up. And Rain Razors comes over the top. That allows you to reload off of the back of the Bolton Shot's ability.
All right, so again, slowly getting some of the damage through again. But that's the 3rd Rain Razors.
It is. It's the last Rain Razors in the deck. So at this point, if you're threat tracking as the Fatigue player, I think the only thing that you can be on right here is Art of War. And after that, I mean, you basically just have this game sewed up.
Yeah, and that's the case. In this case, Tobias just like, you know what, patience. patience, patience, patience. We're going to overblock this. It's the only way to go. Sure, come in with an icing counter.
Yep.
I'm not too worried about it. Tobias is just happy to end this turn with one card that he can just jam into the arsenal, use it for a Crown of Seeds, and go from there. It's all about patience. In this case, I like the fact that he's holding 2 here. It's not much damage that he's absorbing, but more so it's a matter of pitching with hammer and having a pocket.
And at this point, because your opponent's at 1, every time you swing a hammer, you're asking 2 cards. Either you're asking 2 cards, or you're going to give away the Tunic, and then you're going to give away the New Horizon. So at this point, the back against the wall, Eric has to find something that he can do against the inevitability of that Winter's Wail hammer attack.
And it doesn't matter at this point what you pitch. Ice, wind,
just,
earth, fire, heart, Captain Planet. Doesn't matter as long as it's blue. You toss the hammer. Anything connecting is game over.
And
that's it.
That's just going to do it. He's going to send it on over. No blocks made. And the game is won for one Starvo.